All right, so now we have a shop layout. What we want to do now is create a drawing of the shop layout. Drawings allow us to highlight key information that's important for other people to know. It's also nice because they're very easy to pass around. Most people can open PDFs, or you can always save it as another file format. But it makes it really easy for other people to open it if they don't have experience with CAD software, maybe use a different CAD software than what we're using. So it just allows it to be more accessible to other people, again, with key information highlighted. So to create the drawing, we're going to come up here to Design, Drawing from Design. We're going to do visible only. You could do the full assembly, but we don't necessarily have anything hidden that we want to include, so visible only works. Units millimeter, we're going to do A4 paper, and orientation landscape. So that looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's taking a second to populate, and it'll come up with this drawing view window to allow us to select some characteristics. So I'm going to stick with front. That should give us the long wall of the room. I'm going to do visible and hidden edges. So that allows us to essentially see through walls. So anything that's hidden by a wall, we can still see those lines. They'll just be dashed. For scale, I'm going to do 1 to 200. I played with this a little bit earlier, so I know that value works. If you're unsure, you can always play around and change that scale after you place the base view. So that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and pick where I want to put the base view. I'm going to select this top right quadrant of the drawing to give us room to do other projected views that we want. So that looks good. I'm going to come down and press OK. And you can see what I was saying about the hidden line. So you can see the conveyor and the benches. Normally you don't do any dimensioning on hidden lines. So if you wanted to dimension, say like the height of the conveyor for this, we could come up here and do section view, cut a cross section of this view, and then that would allow us to see the hidden lines and we could dimension off of that. But we don't need to do that for today, so that's just an additional tool that's good to know about. All right, so we have one view. We want to do some projections off of this. So we'll come up here and do a projected view. Select that. Select the parent view we want to project off of. And that'll allow us to drag some different views around. So I'm going to do side view with the door. I'm going to do an overhead view so we can align the benches. And then I'm going to do an isometric view, which allows us to see a view off axis, and that can help spatially kind of understand the 3D environment, because sometimes when you just have those flat orthogonal views, it's hard to understand exactly what you're looking at. So that looks good, so I'm going to hit escape, and then that brings all of those views in. All right, so now one of the things we notice is the workers aren't visible in the drawings, or we can't see their reach limits either. So we need to make those visible. So I'm going to come up here. We can see M95 is suppressed because we didn't include, we only did visible. So that's why that's suppressed there. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to show the sketches and then do the person and the reach limits. We can see for that first bench now that's visible. If for some reason those reach limit shells were visible, we could come up here and we could hide them as well. So that looks good for the first one. So now I'm just going to repeat this for each of the other workbenches. It's good to kind of double check that everything you click highlights, because sometimes when you're going through this pretty quickly, something won't show up because, I don't know, it didn't register the click fast enough. So you always want to double check that what you want in your drawing actually ends up being there. So that is the top row done. Now for the bottom row. So this one we're going to use M95. Again, for these ones, the 5th percentile female was not visible in the base design, so they're suppressed in here. If we wanted to, we could unsuppress it, but we can leave that there for now and just come to M95 and do the same thing, showing the sketches. So this can be a little bit tedious for what we're doing. It's not too bad, just because there's 8 of them. There may be a faster way of doing this, but I am unaware of it, but this will work. So now we can see each of the reach limits. We can see kind of from the side view that we have both the 95th percentile male and the 5th percentile female. We can also see that from this view where we have tall workers and small workers. So that looks good. So I'm going to just go ahead and collapse that so it's not in the way. And then now we want to start adding our dimensions. So you have some choices here in kind of selecting which dimensions make sense for what you want to convey. So I am going to come down here. I'm going to select the interior dimension of the room. So do the length and width. And that looks good. I want to know the conveyor length. So you can see where I was, it was selecting the inner one. So I know that this should be 12 meters. So that's another thing you always want to double check, is you're clicking the correct points to give you the values you want, and double check that those values are correct. I also want to know how to place this in the room. So I'm going to go in and select this corner and this wall. I'm going to come back, select this corner and that wall. So now I know how to place the conveyor in the room as well. Now I need to know how to do the benches. So doing the same thing, I'm going to come here and I'm going to select the distance between the benches. And this is just how most people probably think about it when they're arranging furniture. I could have selected like the front corner of this bench and the front corner of this bench. It would put it in the same place, but it might be a little bit less intuitive. So ideally, you're making the person who's looking at this think as little as possible, because the more someone has to kind of use mental effort to understand what they're looking at, the more likely they are to create an error and misinterpret it. So a lot of these dimensions are kind of stacked on top of each other, and that can make it hard to read. So we're gonna move them around. So I clicked escape to get out of the dimensioning tool. And now if I click on the dimensions, I can reposition them to make some a little bit more compact to give us room to move around the views. I can add a little bit of space to some other ones to make them easier to read. All right, and we can see this also has the issue where this dimension is now interfering with this view. So if I click that view, I can just drag it up to where it's out of the way. I can also drag it to the side to position this drawing. So one thing you'll notice is these views are aligned and these views are aligned. And that's generally how you want your drawings to be. Just so if someone's trying to take a measurement, they can follow a line across and understand exactly where things are placed. So that looks pretty good for the dimensions on this overhead view. I do want to add in information about the gap between the bench and the conveyor and the conveyor width, but we'll go through that a little bit later, but that's why I'm not putting it on this drawing. So next up, we want to add in dimensions for the door. So I'm going to do the dimension tool again. I'm going to select this wall and this wall, bring it down, then I'm going to select this line. One thing you'll notice is I'm always dragging the dimensions off of the view to make sure they're not overlapping with features on the drawing. And this is just best practices, so somebody doesn't think, you know, oh, 4000 is written on one of the walls. So that one looks good. So I'm going to hit escape. And now we want to create a detailed view that allows us to zoom in on the area between the conveyor and the benches. So if we come up here to detailed view, click on that, it wants us to select the parent view. So we're going to select this one. If we zoom in, we can select the midpoint for the view. So I'm going to select that, and then it's going to draw a circle that's essentially the magnifying glass. So I'm going to go ahead and do it here. And you can see A is kind of the call out for this view. So you can have multiple detailed views, and it'll provide different letters, so you know which view goes to which part of the drawing. So that's a little tiny still, so I'm going to come up here to the scale and do 1 to 30, and that looks much better. So that looks good. I'm going to say OK. And then you can see where it calls out which detail view it is, and it also has the scale for that specific view. So I'm going to do that and bring it down a little bit. I'm going to click on this A and also bring it outside of the overhead view to make it easier to interpret. So now we need to add some dimensions for this. So I want the spacing between the bench and the conveyor. So I'll select that. I want the conveyor width. So select that. And then I want the spacing on this side. So I'll do that. And that one didn't place that dimension quite where I wanted to, so press escape, click on it, and then drag it up. This is a little bit more dense in terms of information than I'd like to make drawings a lot of times. So if you have a lot of information to provide, a lot of detailed views and other dimensions, you can create additional sheets and then show kind of related information on each sheet. And this is nice just to prevent people from, not being able to see exactly what information is important because they have, 200 different dimensions on a single sheet and it's impossible to read. So you have to use your judgment in terms of what makes sense in terms of how much to provide on a single sheet and what level of detail you want to go into and how to group them. So that looks good in terms of dimensions. One thing we'll notice is we do have the scale for this detailed view. We don't know the scale of the base views. So we can add that in. So if we come down here and we click on the title block, right click, we can edit the title block. I'm just going to say OK and use the same title block that they were using. And we can add text and other information here. So if I click on the big A, it'll allow me to add text. I'm I'm gonna go ahead and put it there. I'm gonna call this scale. And click on close. That overlaps the line, so I can just grab that and move it over. So now I need to pull in the scale information. I know it's 1 to 200 and I could just put that in here, but it's better to do an attribute which allows you to pull information from the drawing itself. So I'm going to click on that and bring it down here, and we can select what attribute we want to put there. So we're going to do the drawing scale. So this way, if we change the scale of the drawing, it should automatically update here. So that looks good. I'm going to say close. I'm also going to put a line on top of this. So come up here, click line, and then draw it across the top, just to make it kind of a little isolated and easier to see. One of the things we're also missing is the dimensions, or like what the units are. I typically am working in millimeters, so I can come up here, select the text again, draw a box and say units millimeters unless otherwise noted. So that way, if for some reason I need to provide a dimension in something other than millimeters, I can just call out with that you know, this one's in inches for some reason. So that looks good. So I'm going to say closed on that, and finish the title block. So that did come up. It brought in a scale, but the scale is 1 to 30. So it's pulling from this detailed view. So we want to change that to where it's pulling from the base view. So if I click on the base view, I know it's selected because it brought up the drawing view box. I can come back down here, edit properties, and do reset properties. So click the little turn arrow, and now it's updated to 1 to 200. So now I can finish properties, and that, I think, will complete the drawing. So now I just need to go and save it. So Control S. It took the base design and just added drawings to it. For our format, it's going to be underscore lowercase drawing. So I'll just update that, save it. And then that is saved, so I can go back to there. And now I need to export the PDF. So come up to the top right, export all sheets, looks good. I'm gonna get rid of the version 1, and then you can select wherever you want to save it. I'm just gonna save it to downloads for now. And then once you save it, I think that's it for the assignment. So you should have kind of everything visible. So with that, I'm going to end it here, and let me know if you have any questions.